without any honor. Nirmita, causes. Bhakti yoga lakshanaha, having symptoms of pure devotional service. Nanagati, of varied destinations. Nimitta, the cause. Avidyagati, the bondage of ignorance. Randana, of cutting. Dwarena, by means. Yada, when. He, indeed. Mahapurusha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purusha, with the devotees. Prashangaha, an ultimate relationship. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Brahman realization is the beginning of liberation, and Paramatma realization is still further towards the realm of liberation.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Skip the translation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Thank you. Wow. Okay, Srila Prabhupada's translation. After many, many births, when the results of one's pious activities mature, one gets an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. Then one is able to cut the knot of bondage to ignorance, which bound him because of varied fruitive activities. As a result of associating with devotees, one gradually renders service to Lord Vasudeva, who is transcendental, free from attachment to the material world, beyond the mind and words, and independent of everything else. That bhakti yoga, devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, is the real path of liberation. Thank you, Tarka Prabhu. The purport, Srila Prabhupada's purport, Brahman realization is the beginning of liberation, and Paramatma realization is still further advancement towards the realm of liberation. But one achieves real liberation when he understands his position as the eternal servant of the personality of Godhead. Muktir hit vanyata rupam swarupena vyashtiti. In the material world, in the bodily concept of life, everyone is working in the wrong direction. When one becomes Brahmabhuta, spiritually realized, one understands that he's not the body, and working in the bodily concept of life is useless and misdirected. Then his devotional service begins. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18:54, Brahmabhuta prashanatmana nasochati nakanchati shamak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Devotional service is actual liberation. When one is attracted by the beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his mind is always engaged in the Lord's lotus feet, he's no longer interested in subjects that do not help him in self-realization. In other words, he loses all attraction for material activities. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, it is said, Eshahi evana dayati, eva evanan dayati, yadahi evasha atashmin, najaste anatmaye, anirukte anilayane, abhayam pratishtam vindate ata sa abhayam gato bhavati. A living entity becomes established in spiritual blissful life when he understands that his happiness depends on spiritual realization, which is the basic principle of Ananda, bliss, and when he is eternally situated in the service of the Lord, who has no other Lord above him. Om Ganati Miranda Siya Ganagana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakachatam Sahagana Rakutatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadabhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lolita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namashtute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shikora Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vachakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashtatya Dejatarine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane. Shri Gaura Karina Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine. So the translation again. After many, many births, when the results of one's pious activities mature, one gets an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. Then one is able to cut the knot of bondage to ignorance, which bound him because of varied fruitive activities. As a result of associating with devotees, one gradually renders service to Lord Vasudeva, who is transcendental, free from attachment to the material world, beyond the mind and words, and independent of everything else. That bhakti yoga, devotional service to Lord Vasudeva, is the real path of liberation. Hey, thank you so very much, devotees, for being here. So this verse is, all of these verses, of course, are really wonderful. And this particular verse is we've moved from, I believe we were hearing some prayers, and now Shukadev Goswami is narrating some principles of devotional service, and he's narrating the process of how one can actually understand the real path of liberation, how to understand that. What does that mean? And so he starts this translation with after many, many births, when a person's when the results of a person's pious activities are mature, then one gets an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. So there was a conversation with Srila Prabhupada and his disciples. I don't remember if it was in Mayapur, which is where Tarka was at some point in time. I don't remember if it said where it was, but anyway, Srila Prabhupada, he asked his disciples, the question, are you really convinced that you're an eternal spiritual being? That was in the early days of the disciples serving Srila Prabhupada. So that question, are you really convinced? Are you really convinced? Because we can, of course, speak the philosophy, and Srila Prabhupada has had many disciples able to repeat what he has said very expertly. And we've had many scholars, actually, that have repeated what Srila Prabhupada has said. However, that question is still a part of our unfoldment in Krishna consciousness. My really convinced that I'm a spiritual being. So Srila Prabhupada gave us the process to understand that question. And that might be a question that some of us might ask until we leave this body. Am I really convinced? However, Prabhupada came and, in his magnificence and his elegance, in terms of being a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he came and gave us the most valuable, the most important gift in order for us to reflect, to understand or to become or to do or to participate in when we reflect on that question. Am I really convinced that I'm eternal being in my day-to-day activities? And so Srila Prabhupada, of course, he gave us the holy name. By the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have the holy names. And Srila Prabhupada gives us his representatives who are dedicated, most dedicated to help us to understand the value of having the holy names of the Lord. And so, along with the holy names of the Lord and the opportunity to call in the holy names of the Lord, we get some understanding that we're not this body. And I know for some time I was in India, and there was a debate, among some of the more erudite scholars in our movement about whether or not it was time to get some deeper understanding about this theme that we're not the body. That in Srila Prabhupada's books, that this was the theme that Prabhupada kept coming back to, which appeared to be, for many, very basic. You're not the body. We're not the body. Every story in the Bhagavatam or every philosophical understanding that he brings this back again and again and again. You're not the body. You're not the body. So at that time, I don't remember what year that was, but somehow, because we used to go to India every year and stay for 6 months. So somehow that was one of the big topics, the hot topics in Vrindavan at that time. Is it too basic that we need to have more understanding? At that time, devotees were saying, and I'm guessing they're still saying that now, that we need to have more Raganuga, need to have more Raganuga understanding. And because this theme, we're hearing it again and again and again. And now we need to go deeper to understand more of the esoteric realizations about Krishna. And so there was this debate. And of course, as debates go, it became somewhat a bit of a conflict. Debates can go like that. They can become conflict. And so we have a school in our movement where some devotees are more Raganuga inclined. And we have another school where some devotees, they focus on this theme of the body. They speak again and again and again about this. And the reason I that came to my attention, I remember that when I read this verse last night, I was remembering, just kind of being a fly in Vrindavan, hearing all these different discussions. And I remember that when it turned into a kind of a conflict, then the relationships became somewhat lost, simply because of some philosophical understanding. And that's quite unfortunate. And that happens quite a bit. However, this is what Prabhupada, he wanted us to ask this question constantly. Do we really believe that we're spiritual beings? And to what degree, how are we elevating from this bodily concept of life? It's not, obviously it's not an easy thing. So this premise of calling on the holy names of the Lord, that's our foundation, and we're all aware of that. And at the same time, this is one of the most difficult the most difficult awareness of this teaching internally that we may we may have as we go on and trying to practice devotional service. Many, many, many people have difficulties embracing the chanting of the holy names of the Lord in a very deep and internal way. And so Prabhupada kept telling us, and our different spiritual teachers, they share with us all the time that we can only become transcendental, which means awareness of the fact that we're not this material body, by calling on the holy names of the Lord. And of course, hearing about the holy names of the Lord. Those are the two essential processes of bhakti. As we know, there's 9, and those two are the two that are emphasized consistently by our spiritual guides, our spiritual teachers, our spiritual mentors, to embrace this chanting of the holy names of the Lord in such a way that we can minimize our attachments to fruitative activities and minimize our desires in terms of wanting the benefits of being in material life and just wanting to embrace those things in material life and not understanding how to engage those things that material life provides for us in Krishna service. And so Prabhupada also explains to us that one of the ways that we can understand that we're fully embracing the holy names of the Lord is because we will see some results. And of course, the results for those that are aspiring to be devotees is that they will give up sinful activities, which I believe that is spoken every time there's a class in here on this platform, how to embrace the principles of Krishna consciousness, how to embrace no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no those 4 main principles that Srila Prabhupada gives to us to bring us to the human platform of life, which is to help us to learn, to remember, to understand that we're not this body. Back to the basics, we're not this body. So in order to give up sinful activities, then all of our activities, all the activities that we do has to be sanctioned by the Lord, right? To not be engaged in sinful activities. We need to be deeply connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Prabhupada explains that he's explaining in his purport that the pure devotees, that they are deeply connected to this this final understanding. Giraj Maharaj, he wrote a book, and he speaks about these very great devotees that have lived amongst us. And he explains about all of these devotees. Of course, he speaking about these devotees after they've left the body, the final lessons. And he explains that a pure devotee, well, first of all, he speaks that in the beginning of this book, he shares that you have to be a pure devotee to know a pure devotee. Person has to be a pure devotee in order to know a pure devotee. However, when you look at the lives of some of the personalities that have left their bodies, we see that they exemplified this mood of Srila Prabhupada, not being detached from the material body and using everything that's presented to us in the material world in the service of the Lord. That's one of the characteristics that all of these personalities that he wrote about exemplified in their life. They embodied this mood of Srila Prabhupada, this mood of sharing the holy names and engaging people in hearing about Krishna's pastimes. And by them also not engaging in sinful activities. These are some of the requirements of a person that we can look and say is a pure devotee of the Lord. So the point that Prabhupada makes here, and Giriraj Maharaj is making as he's speaking about these devotees, is that we can't artificially become transcendental. It's not an artificial process. It's actually a gradual process. And that process is explained here after many, many births, after when the results of one's past activities mature. So we know that bhakti is not dependent on any pious activities. We understand that. Bhakti gives us bhakti. It's not dependent on anything else. However, we hear in this translation, Shukadeva Goswami, that after many births and when the results of someone's pious activities are mature. So we can look at that just in basic everyday life, people that act in the mode of goodness, that at a point their pious activities becomes mature at some point. The goodness that they do will come to a point in their life where they will want more. They will want more. And in that, when they come to that place of doing, like philanthropic activities, for example, in the world, those are pious activities. Then when they get that awareness that they want something more, then a devotee will come in their life in some way or another, whether it's the form of a book or however, some way a devotee will become available for them. So this maturity of pious activities, it's not that bhakti is dependent on that. However, that is an aspect of how someone may get the mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord. And so Prabhupada says after many births of pious activities. I remember I have a friend that he's born in Udupi. He's born in a Brahmin family, and he was born in another sampradaya. However, he had understanding. He's in Udupi, so he has understanding of Krishna. However, he didn't, although his whole family are Brahmins, and he knew Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He didn't have real deep understanding about that. And it wasn't until he met the devotees, that he could understand this aspect of devotional service and could understand who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who really is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So for his whole life, most of his life growing up in that Brahmin family, being a part of such an amazing family that understood that God needed to be in the center of their lives, Krishna needed to be in the center of their lives. Still, he had no real understanding. He used to tell us stories about who he thought Madhavacharya was, and the concept in that particular sampradaya was kind of more cultural. There was an emphasis on the culture as opposed to the real understanding of who Krishna is. And Prabhupada, that's what he gave us, the understanding of who the Supreme Lord is and how do we interact, how do we connect with the Supreme Lord? How do we do that? Why are we doing that? These are some of the points, these are some of the realizations that we get from practicing bhakti under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada and our respective spiritual masters, of course. So this Prabhu, when he became a devotee, he told us when he met the devotees, of course, he had some ego, as everyone does. And he thought, well, what can they, really teach me in the beginning when he's met them? Because he did have some understanding. And he said when the devotees gave him this basic principle of not being the body and going deeper into understanding that, he then really embraced Krishna consciousness to a point where he wanted to write about his realizations. So he's written quite a few books, to help young people. His books are geared to teenagers, mostly, more young people, to help them in this early stage of their development to be able to understand the deeper aspects of we're not this body and why that's so important. Prabhupada, in this report, well, let's keep with this translation for a bit because Prabhupada says that when a person is able to cut the knot of bondage to ignorance, which binds that person to fruitive activities. And yes, we understand the mode of ignorance can be very detrimental to a person's existence in this material world. In the Bhagavad Gita, it's explained that when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, that there's darkness, there's inertia, there's madness, illusion, all this are manifested by the mode of ignorance. And a person in a mode of ignorance, they don't, of course, engage in any regulative principles. They act whimsically, they have no purpose, and they make no endeavor to really try to understand anything deeper. This is, Prabhupada says, this is called illusion. And so these are the symptoms of the mode of ignorance. Here, though, Prabhupada is helping us to understand that, or Sukadeva Goswami, that when a person is able to cut this bondage of ignorance, of the mode of ignorance, just by associating with devotees, just by getting the mercy of having association with the pure devotees of the Lord. And there's very many ways we can have association. For example, a very basic way that I miss sometimes in the temple is just watering Tulsi Devi. You know, that's such a beautiful way to associate with the devotees of the Lord. Yeah, associating with devotees. Prabhupada has made arrangements for us to have that in many, many different ways. So this material world, this whole material world, is kind of controlled by passion and ignorance, right? But that's not, we understand that that's only in this material realm. And as soon as we take shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord, as soon as we take shelter of hearing about the Lord, calling on the Lord's names, then we start getting some kind of illumination to understand more about the Lord. And so Prabhupada says that by this association, gradually we render devotional service to Vasudeva, gradually. So that gradually is important. It wouldn't be in there. Sukadeva wouldn't put it in there, Sukadeva Goswami, if it wasn't important, because sometimes we, again, going back to that conflict that was there in I'm sorry, it was in Vrindavan, it wasn't in Mayapur, but that conflict that was there, it wouldn't have escalated to the place that it did if people were not focused, if people were more focused, those more focused on the gradual process of rendering devotional service. If we are not, you know, sometimes we want to like jump over everything. That's just our natural human enthusiasm. Once we start learning, especially learning about bhakti, we have a tendency to want to, you know, be pure devotees right away. But Prabhupada says it's a gradual process. You know, after many, many births, it's gradual. When we meet someone, that will start helping us to awaken that love that's there. It's there, it's there for sure, within us for Krishna. However, it needs to be like in that story of Muchakunda, when he killed Kalyavana, after he killed him, Krishna had arranged somehow mystically, as Krishna does in everything that he does, mystically he arranged that Muchakunda would wake up just at the time that Kalyavana came there to the cave, and Krishna could get a couple of things done at the same time. So Muchakunda, when he woke up and he saw Kalyavana, he was angry because he wanted to sleep, because he had been serving the demigods for so long. And he wanted to, you know, take some rest. And so he thought he was being disturbed. So he burned Kalyavana. And Krishna was so appreciative that he didn't have to do it. You know, his devotee did it. Muchakunda did it. And so Muchakunda, when he became like aware, he saw Krishna, and in this verse it's mentioned about the beauty of Krishna. He kind of like he understood, okay, this person is not, who is this person? And he actually asked Krishna, who are you? Who are you? he could understand that this was not an ordinary person just by the way Krishna looked. And also when he understood that he had some memory um, about the predictions about Krishna, that Krishna would appear. And in the astrological reading, it was given that Krishna would appear and that he, Muchukunda, would have his association. He would get his association. So that memory came back somehow. And at the same time, though, he still he was not fully aware. And so when he became aware that this is Krishna, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, of course, he immediately went into prayer and, just immediately started glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in that mood of Muchukunda, where he did some service for the Lord without even being aware that he was doing that, he was acting purely on, his own motives, we could say, because he was angry. That service is so much appreciated by the Lord that Krishna then offered him a benediction for whatever he wanted. He said, whatever you want, I will give that to you. So we're in that same situation even as aspiring devotees. Every day we get that benediction from the Lord. Every single day we get a benediction. What do you want? What are your desires? What is it that you want? And if our desires is to be, whatever our desires may be, we may want in devotional life to do so many different things or be so many different ways. We want people to see us in so many different ways. Whatever that is, Krishna will arrange that. He will benedict us. He will give us, he will fulfill that desire. Of course, if it's antithetical to Krishna, if it's to sustain a mode of ignorance and passion, then he may not give that. He may not. If it's in some way connected to Krishna in some way, Krishna will make that arrangement. He will give that to such persons. So what is my point for even mentioning that? Well, because Sukadeva Goswami goes into, as a result of associating with devotees, one gradually renders service to Lord Vasudeva. So just like Muchukunda, he was lying there, in his cave for I don't know how long, but it took some time and it took some action, for him to get that mercy, even though it was prophesied that he would get it. Still, it took some time. And then here, Shukadeva Goswami is he's glorifying Vasudeva, the Lord, transcendental, free from attachment to material world. Okay, so the Lord is beyond our mind, beyond words, is independent of everything. This is the Supreme Lord, and that this path of devotional service. So now we come to understanding the process of bhakti brings us ultimately to offering devotional service gradually. This is the real path of liberation. So oftentimes there's some confusion about liberation. But for us as devotees, even as aspiring devotees, we're very clear that real liberation means to engage in devotional service. We're very clear on that. And so then Prabhupada, he talks about Brahman realization and Paramatma realization. And just recently, I do some services by Krishna's grace with different groups, which most of the people are new in these different groups. And so one of the groups that I do some services with is a group called Wisdom of the Sages, which is Raghunatha and Kaustubha. So I do some work with them, and we do a group once a week, and these are all new devotees, and everybody that comes are new, have no real understanding. And it was really nice when I saw this verse, because what we're talking about with these new devotees tomorrow, Wednesday. On Wednesday we meet. On Wednesday we have this group. And the theme of the discussion, which was so sweet for us, is what is Brahman realization? What is Brahman realization? This is a topic that we are discussing in our group, the 3 levels of God realization. And here we have Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he's wanting us to understand this. And here are these devotees committed to the path of devotion, committed to their spiritual masters, spiritual teachers. And, we have 20 different groups. And so all of these people this week are going to learn about what Srila Prabhupada is giving us in this purport, what are the 3 levels of God realization. And I was just thinking of the synchronicity and timing of how everything that Krishna is arranging everything in this material world and giving everyone an opportunity to learn about him in various different ways. So this group we've been doing this now for quite some time. And this is a new group. And I was thinking this group, somehow, for this session, we've met now only 3 times. And this is our 4th meeting. And already they're getting this opportunity. So it's kind of like the Krishna is speeding things up, just like Prabhupada was when he wrote this purport. He's speeding things up. We got to understand, okay, what are these 3 levels, and how do we, how does that apply in our lives? And so the discussion questions for these persons this week is, what is Brahman realization? What is Paramatma realization? And what is Bhagavan realization? And some beautiful reflections for people to ponder on, to think about. And this is what Prabhupada is saying here. He says, Brahman realization is the beginning of liberation. Paramatma realization is still further advancement towards a realm of liberation. But real liberation is when understands that he's an eternal servant of Krishna, Jivera Swarup. And so here, I found this quite interesting that when in describing Paramatma realization, the description that I'm guessing this is Kaustubha Prabhu is just so wonderful on his part. One perceives that one perceives that there is order in this world, and realizes that it is controlled by a conscious being who is everywhere, including inside me, overseeing everything and keeping this in order. And then he goes into the feelings, because there's so much in bhakti, there's so much emphasis on feelings that we don't always think about, that it's all about emotions, actually. Bhakti is built on so much emotions between Krishna and Krishna's associates, and even Krishna and his incarnations. There's so much different kinds of transcendental emotions. So here he's explaining for Paramatma realization, within my own heart, I am in constant contact and under the shelter of the transcendent, all-pervading Parabrahman, the supreme consciousness, the soul of the universe, who exists both outside and inside of everything, who oversees and controls this material energy, and who is the dear friend of every living entity. And I've got him right here in the heart, and I exist in his network of material energy. So this is such a beautiful description, I thought, to help a person that's coming new to Krishna consciousness, to understand the Lord in the heart, and to really imbibe and embody this gradual process as Prabhupada is sharing with us. Okay, I see this, we're almost there, so I'm going to kind of just, there's so much in Srila Prabhupada's purport that helps us to illuminate this translation of Shukadev Goswami. But the main points I wanted to make is the importance of this theme of Srila Prabhupada that's basic, the bodily concept of life, and how important it is, and how, to understand that bhakti is a gradual process, and everyone is on a different level, as we all know, when we come in association with each other. Everyone is on a different level of how they will embody and imbibe bhakti. And after thousands and thousands of births, we hear a person get the opportunity to get this association of someone like Srila Prabhupada. And so to be able to engage in devotional service, that is what is real liberation. And that means really embracing, hearing, and chanting, calling on Krishna's holy names. That is so key. because sometimes we want to be so philosophical and explain philosophy, which is beautiful and wonderful. Shouldn't I'm in no way minimizing how important it is to hear philosophy. At the same time, to really understand the philosophy, and of course, I'm saying this to myself, it requires that we really embrace in a very sincere and in a way of integrity, calling on the holy names of the Lord, following the full regulative principles. Um, yeah, engaging. This is how we get to that Raganuga stage. And so the last point I want to make here is from Narada Muni. And Narada Muni explains, he says in one of his sutras, he says that therefore seekers of liberation should take to devotional service. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, that ultimately, as we are exposed to Krishna consciousness, it is important to stay engaged somehow in whatever small way we can uh, engage at the lotus feet of the Lord. Like Mochakunda, the way he engaged was to kill, burn Kalyavana, and that was his connection with Krishna. And so similarly, that was actually his devotional service. So for us, this is, as I said, Krishna benedicts us every day to engage in devotional service. And then and Narada Muni, he brings this to our attention. He says, this prayer of Lord Chaitanya in the Shishastakam, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim, Kavitam Vajakari. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire for accumulating wealth, nor do I have any desire to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want many followers. All I want is your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. By saying birth after birth, Lord Chaitanya implies that he does not seek liberation either. All he desires is continuous service and remembrance of the Lord in any sphere of life. So that's the mood of Srila Prabhupada. That's what he gave us, to hanker for devotional service. And devotional service comes in many ways. Of course, the umbrella are those two primary ways of engaging, hearing and chanting. And as we do that, then Krishna arranges many different ways for us to engage in devotional service. So thank you very much. And I just want to hear from some of you, your reflections on chanting, your reflections on I'm not this body, and do I really believe that I'm a spiritual being? Really, at the core of my heart, of your heart, do you really believe that? Okay, thank you very much. Prabhupada Ki Jai. Does anyone have any reflections? I see there's chats in the chat. I don't know. Okay, this might be Charka Prabhu. After engaging in the activities of devoted. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mother Virgilina.
Hare Bo Prabhu.
Thank you
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Many pearls of profound wisdom there. You covered a lot of territory. Left my head spinning every time I latched onto something. And I thought, oh, here's something I can think about and comment on. Then another fascinating topic popped up, and practically I'm losing track of all the things that were said. But I greatly appreciate the discussion. It was very nice. With regards to believing that we are not this body, of course, the actual realization that we're not this body is very different than just theoretical intellectual understanding. And but the wonderful thing about the process of Krishna consciousness is that we arrive at that practical realization automatically just by the performance of devotional service. Krishna says about that in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Abhiyam. That this knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge. And because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So, our actual identity, independent of the material body, these temporary bodies, these designations that are actually false. Process of Krishna consciousness will bring us automatically to the point of a practical realization that I have nothing to do with these temporary designations. And also by the process of devotional service, we will automatically realize what I actually am, that I am, I'm not this body, Brahmasmi, I am spiritual in nature. Then there are many details to fill in. That also comes by the devotional service and by the association with advanced devotees. And how do you understand who has realized that they are not this body, or even ourselves? At what point will we understand that? All right, I'm practically realizing that I'm not this body. Krishna speaks about that as well in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, text 28. He says, Tattva Vittu Mahabahu Gunakarma Vibhagayoho Gunaguneshu Vartantayiti Matva Nasajate. One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, O mighty arm, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work and devotion and work for fruitive results. So, someone who is actually self-realized, who has realized that I'm not this body, doesn't indulge his senses for simply for sense gratification. He engages his senses in devotion to service, but is not engaged in the pursuit of sense gratification. He's understood that that real happiness comes by devotion and service. Srila Prabhupada mentioned in his purport, there was one verse that he made reference to, and I was trying to look up this verse. It was a little bit troublesome. Portions of what he quoted are mentioned in various places, but not necessarily together. And I was trying to find a single reference to this from the Taittiriya Upanishad. But I think I finally arrived at one in particular where a single translation is given. This appears in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, but so this is going to be Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's commentary. He says, Taittiriya 271 states, Yad Vai Tata Sukram Raso Vai Saha Rasam Kivayam Bhavandi Bhavati Asia Yevan Dayati Ata So Vayam Gato Bhavati. When one understands the personality of Godhead, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendently blissful He alone is the source of all pleasure. Therefore, by knowing him, one becomes fearless. So Srila Prabhupada was quoting this uh, on one moment while I reference this. Hare Krishna.
You know, Tarka Prabhu, I love
Yeah.
when you share, and as you're sharing all the quotes from Srila Prabhupada, I'm just reflecting on, you know, another service that I've been doing for a few years now, which is working with groups of devotees that, you know, they've heard those verses, I'm guessing, innumerable times. And and at the same time, um, their challenges all are coming from thinking that they're the body, you know. And I've been in so many situations with my own challenges of still thinking that I'm this body, even though I hear constantly, I'm hearing. So one of the one of the things that I've come to understand and realize is that when hearing the philosophy and speaking the philosophy simultaneously, it requires having deep compassion, you know, for even those that are aspiring on the path. Because unfortunately or fortunately, and as we're evolving in the process, um, the obstacles in our own hearts, you know, the knots of material activities in our own hearts, that even when we hear constantly, it's so difficult for those knots to be untied, you know, it really requires so much compassion. And Srila Prabhupada gave us the perfect philosophy. How we live it is the question. How we live it. And I'm saying that to myself, because I get, you know, I get realizations about that each time I do another group of, I'm somehow Krishna is engaging me to do groups of devotees that are very new coming to Krishna consciousness, and groups of devotees that's been practicing for a long time, that are burdened by trauma, by grief, and cannot access the philosophy, even though they hear the philosophy, even though we hear the philosophy. So in the gap between coming to being a devotee, hearing the philosophy, and unfolding all the different issues in our lives, it can sometimes be very confusing for many people. Yeah, so I want to just thank you so much, and I want to just share something here that I believe Parmeshwari shared. Yeah, um, she says, thank you, Mother Vajalila. Okay, so many points. I'm specifically inspired to dive deeper into really realizing that we're not the material body. And I appreciate your point, how as devotees, we tend to philosophize, but it is also important to really realize the knowledge as well, practical realization. Also, the aspect that embodied in this human body, we tend to be less patient, to embrace the actual process of bhakti, and want to quickly become pure devotee and internalize that in our hearts or subconscious mind in different ways. And bhakti is independent. Bhakti creates more bhakti, very deep point. Thank you. And Nagaraj Prabhu's, thank you. Yeah, you know, I'm really happy Parameshwara is studying in such a way that she can be compassionate to the people in the world and the people that will be coming to Krishna consciousness. Because really what makes changes is our delivery of these absolute wonderful truths of bhakti. It's all in how we deliver it. And Srila Prabhupada, because he was the embodiment of compassion and kindness, and he delivered it in such a way that he could change people's hearts. However, not not ever, you know, yeah, that was Srila Prabhupada. I see Gita Nagari Echo have farm hands up. Haribo, Nagari Krishna Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna
Krishna.
Mata.
Matagora. Hari Hari.
Hare Brahma. Thank you so much for that very illuminating class. Yeah, on the importance of in order for you to, my reflection on it is that in order for one to actually enter into the mystery of Raga Nuga Bhakti, one has to understand Krishna's ontology, well, who Krishna actually is. And understanding who Krishna actually is goes hand in hand with understanding who you are. And so Prabhupada's emphasis on we're not this body is part of actually understanding he's actually helping us to go to the Raga Nuga platform. So I really appreciate that. Just seeing that context. My question relates to the impatience that can come with just struggling with the bodily concept of life. And one manifestation of the struggle, as you mentioned, was sinful activity. So now a lot of devotees are, when they speak on this topic, I've heard that, okay, yeah, we should try to avoid pure devotee syndrome. But it seems like that's like less and less in the generation of devotees today. Devotees actually wanting to be pure devotees, but they mention it, you know. It seems to me from my observation is that devotees go away due to impatience in the process. Or just like, yeah, one can reflect that, oh, I've been struggling with regulative principles, struggling with my chanting for so many years, and it's not happening. Such devotees, aren't really thinking, I want to be a pure devotee. They just want the struggle to end.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
devotional service, I don't know, Bhakti should just like flow,
Yes.
So how does one actually deal with, just cultivate more patience with the practice? I mean, you just say that it is a gradual process, but even that intellectual understanding isn't sufficient when one is actually going through the struggle and the gradual nature of it. So how do you be patient in devotional service?
That's a nice question. Thank you so much for that question, Prabhu. Having experienced many challenges on the path myself, I remember my spiritual master, my revered spiritual master. He once wrote me a note. he said to me, he says, on this path of bhakti, you are at a place where it's important to understand. At this place where you are now, it's all about perseverance. Just persevere, through this process. And at the time when he wrote that to me, I was like, persevere, huh? But I was going through a really difficult period. Been through many difficult periods in my Krishna conscious life. However, because I trust him, and because I knew he loved me, and because I knew that he was looking out for my future, I was able to somehow or other accept that instruction to persevere. So, Prabhu, I do believe in this process of bhakti. It's important for us to have people around us that we trust. And it's not always the spiritual master. In my case, I was very fortunate to have, direct association with my spiritual master. That's not there for everyone. It's not there these days at all, so much at all. However, we need to have people that we can reveal our minds to. That's why I do these groups, because we gotta make ourselves available to hear, the journey that people are going through, and to be there for them, to be present, to let them know, like, yeah, my life is also, been challenged, and somehow this perseverance is really important. They got to see the examples. They got to see the examples of people that are engaged in bhakti and are able to share the philosophy, but however, share it with the fact that, look, after many births, I mean, Krishna says, after many births, one can know him. after many births, a person meets a devotee. It's not, it's like, we're aspiring to become pure. We are pure, but we don't remember. So we're aspiring for that awareness of our perfection. And what that requires is to have loving, caring association. Without that, it's difficult. Somebody can throw the philosophy at us. Sounds good, inspires us because connects with our hearts, not different from Krishna. May not help us to move the knots that's there in the heart. May not. Even when, as Tarka is sharing, as you hear the philosophy, of course, we will change. We will start awakening to our love of Krishna. Krishna just didn't tell us how long. He's saying, well, yeah, we're here from Prabhupada after many births, from Shukadev Goswami, after many births. Krishna did tell us, actually. So in my own life, what have helped me through to learn patience is seeing the examples of others that have been challenged, that have stayed on the path, and to feel their love. My spiritual master is very challenged on this path of bhakti in many ways, on many different levels. And I saw that because he had that love for Srila Prabhupada, he loved Srila Prabhupada so much. And that came from Srila Prabhupada personally reciprocating with my spiritual master, personally telling him your life is perfect, personally embracing him, personally eager to hear his letters when he was doing his services. Personally, it's all about personalism. And unless we can imbibe personalism, we can hide under the philosophy, and we can illuminate people's, awareness to want to hear more philosophy. If that philosophy isn't taking root, if that philosophy isn't helping us to sincerely chant, sincerely follow the principles, of freedom, and that comes after some time for most people. And what's interesting, Agar Krishna Prabhu, is many devotees are stuck. Many, 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 many. Older devotees. Devotees have been around for a while. They're stuck. And it requires someone that just will compassionately just listen and be there. Just listen, just listen. That's why Prabhupada, this hearing, of course, he refers to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, but hearing is more than just Srimad Bhagavatam. Hearing is just being present and letting that person know, you can trust me, you can tell me anything. I will not judge you for that, because it is a gradual process. And that's what my spiritual master did for me. That's the only reason I get nervous like anything given Srimad Bhagavatam class. But I do it because I know it'll help me to persevere. So I do it. I hope that's helpful. Perseverance on the path.
Very, very helpful. Thank you so much, Ma. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. If there's anything else. Yashodev Das, thank you for engaging me. Parameshwar, thank you. Compassion. Yeah. We got to become more compassionate listeners. Got to understand the issues of devotees. Yeah. Haribol. Thank you, Leela. Hari Hare Krishna. Okay, my dear friends, thank you very much. As I said, every time I get, and especially on this forum, I don't know what it is, that I get kind of a little discombobulated when I get to share share the philosophy. However, I started realizing that just be who I am, just be what I am, like, yeah, just be that and embrace that and give what you've learned over the years and be personal. Just be personal. That's Krishna consciousness for me. Arivo. Thank you, Yashoday, for engaging me. And I'm sorry about last week. I actually was down with I don't know, some kind, not the total virus, but I was down. I was down for a few days. And thank you. And I'm sorry I missed your Nityananda's class. I had the Wisdom of the Sage group at the same time, and they're new. So I got a chance to talk to them about Lord Nityananda. At the same time, I was feeling such separation because you are an amazing devotee that really can convey Krishna consciousness from the heart. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Haribo. So my dear devotees, I'm going to go. I'm going with Nagari to an appointment. Hare Krishna. See you next week. Krishna willing.
Hare Krishna, Mother Rajalila. Thank you for the class. As
Hare
always,
Bo.
lots to learn from your classes. So appreciate your compassion.
Thank you, JP. You have a Kartik beard coming up. Jagannath Pandit, you need to give class. I hope your schedule will work out in such a way that you will be able to enlighten us from your heart. You have so much to share.
Thank you for your encouragement.
Hari. Thank you for being such an example of us of being dutiful with your household responsibilities. That's so important. Yeah, so important. Thank you, Prabhu. Haribol, Hare Krishna.